Good morning, everyone, and welcome here to RVCC Online. My name is Crystal. Thank you so much for clicking on and being a part of our online service here today. Hey, if you're new with us, I personally just want to say thank you for giving us a try here. We have learned more and more that online is a great way for people to try out church for the first time or try out a new church. And if that is something that you're doing here today, I just personally want to say, hey, thank you for clicking on and letting Rainier View be a part of your Sunday morning here. There is the chat box that is available there as well. Please, at any time, if you feel like going ahead and saying hello, or if something resonates with you in the sermon, go ahead and put that in the chat box. We love to see engagement happening throughout the entire service, and that's kind of the cool thing about an online service is you can engage the entire time there with the chat box. If you brought a prayer request with you today, if you've got something that's pressing on you and you want to talk with someone privately, you can definitely hit that request prayer button that's there at the bottom of the screen. A private chat box will pop up, and our digital host that is here with you today would be honored to pray with you or answer any questions that you might have. So feel free to do that anytime during the service. And speaking of prayer requests and connecting, our connection card, our digital connection card, the link is going to pop up in the chat there. Please feel free to fill that out at any time. And there's also, there's the prayer request area too. And our staff throughout the week sees those prayer requests, and we pray with you throughout the week, and we want to do life with you. So please feel free to fill out that information, especially if you're new with us. Please fill out your information. I would love to reach out and say hello. So we're going to be going into a time of worship giving here at Rainier View, and we truly do value this time, and this is definitely part of walking in faith and being a part of that relationship with Jesus. And you might be asking, like, okay, giving and relationship with Jesus, what does that have to do with anything? So we definitely encourage you to plan, and this is something that I want you to think on. Spontaneous giving is fantastic. We are super thankful for gifts that you might be giving throughout the week, but the thing is God actually does ask us in the Bible to be planning out and thinking about how we are giving, and that doesn't go unnoticed here at Rainier View. So we definitely want to talk about how, like in Genesis, if you think about it, God actually, if I'm looking at it here, Abraham actually thought ahead of time to send gifts with his servants for Isaac's future wife. In the Christmas story, the Magi planned ahead of time to bring extravagant gifts to God's son. And so God strategically showed his love for us by sending Christ while we were still sinning against him, if you think about that. So Isaiah 32:8 says, "But generous people plan to do what is generous, and they stand firm in their generosity." And that's huge. So we're going to be talking a lot about goodness, and we're going to be talking a lot about giving here in the specific service, because we have a very special event here today. We had Missions of Hope International with us out this last week, and so I will touch on that. But to finish out, if you brought your gift with you today, you can give of 3 different ways. There's rainierview.org/give. There's also our free, safe, and secure PushPay app, or you can mail in a check at any time. And I kind of just wanted to use this as just a segue into talking a little bit about Missions of Hope International and what it means to give to that organization. So Missions of Hope International, an organization that has sponsored children in Kenya. They're building schools. And Mary is just incredible. She is one of the co-founders and co-directors of Missions of Hope International, and her story is phenomenal. If you haven't listened to the podcast where we had her husband Wallace out with her, you definitely want to check out our podcast for that. And Mary is going to share with you just some incredible stories of why it's so important to sponsor a child. This isn't just throwing $40 to the wind. This is being a part of the Great Commission of going out and making disciples of all nations. And so I'm going to pop off here, and Missions of Hope International and Jeff are going to be here, and on the screen here in just a minute, Mary is going to be telling you some incredible stories and why it is so important to sponsor a child. And this is something I'll pop on here after the message, but I really want you to listen and think about some things, and then we'll talk a little bit after.
We're continuing in our series today on navigating a polarized world, and it just felt like, I don't know, maybe there's a handful of us that are struggling on this, so we figured we'd talk about it. But really the solution to navigating all of that conflict and that tension and the polarization that we all feel is character. It's having a different character than the world around us invites us to engage with. And so to get us in the right frame of mind for this, I want to start with a little activity, good versus bad food edition. Okay, it's real simple. There's going to be a series of foods that we're going to put on the screen. And if you think the food is good, I need you to cheer. If you think the food is bad or at minimum overrated, I need you to boo. Okay, it's very straightforward. First service got it. I know you guys can do it too. All right, here we go. First food, let's jump into the deep end here. Good or bad? I am firmly team boo. Gross. Okay. All right, let's try next one. Next one up here. Ready to go? Avocados. Yeah, I am definitely team avocados. I like that you guys edged it out there. I already know you don't like any of them, Joe. So anyways, we're gonna keep going. Okay, this one's very important. No salt, no pepper, no tomato, Tabasco sauce, whatever. Just plain scrambled eggs. No, boo, okay? Scrambled eggs are just a means to carry some other flavor, okay? That is the only thing they're good for, other than protein. So, I'm on team boo on that one. Okay, this next one, you gotta pay close attention. Mint chocolate ice cream. This has been the biggest surprise. We have a lot of mint chocolate ice cream fans. So the next time we have a church event, we're getting mint chocolate ice cream that we need ice cream for. So, all right, next one. Shrimp cocktail. Sorry. Oh, by the way, mint ice cream I'm good with. Shrimp cocktail, rubbery ocean meat, beer red sauce. Boo, good. I don't know, like, second service was a little bit feisty right there. All right, last but not least, hot black coffee. You are my people who enjoy this beverage, yes, because no matter what your preferences around which foods are good and bad, right? Like that's not what's most important. Although if you just diss coffee, they're the doors. You can go. Okay, this is one of the best things God created. No, seriously, don't leave. We got an amazing morning planned for you. But yeah. In the end, our preferences around food or what we can or can't eat really are not foundational and core to what matters most in life. But how do we answer the question, though, of like, well, but then how do I know what is good and bad in my life? People of every generation have had to wrestle with and figure out how to answer that question. Now, I'm standing by my position that coffee is a moral good. You can look at the very end of the Bible, Revelation 21. It talks about the tree of life bearing 12 crops, each one a month in their season. I am convinced that at least 3 of those months are coffee beans. Okay? You can think on it. Let me know what you think, but that's what I think. But that's why we're really in this series. On minor things that don't matter, right? Like, yeah, it's just kind of a fun little game. But then we get to these issues that we just become so divisive and become so polarized and we don't know how to have conversation and there's a lack of civility. And so that's why we're in this series, Navigating a Polarized World, because again, we've all wrestled with this question, how do I know what is good? Like, how do I determine what is good? Because how I answer this question determines the choices that I make. It determines where I invest my time and my finances and my money. It determines who I spend time with and hang out and who I value. And today I don't want to focus on large scale, like, universal truths and debate, like how we know those are good or not. What I want to do is actually focus on something that you won't hear me say very often. I want you to focus on yourself this morning. Okay? Somebody's excited about it. Finally, can we talk about me? Right, how do I determine for myself, like, what is good? Because I believe if we understand, and the quality that we're looking at today is the quality of goodness. When we understand goodness and how to live out good in our world, I believe that can be one of the most powerful evidences for God's presence and power alive and active and at work within us. And so that's what we want to focus this morning. Because the qualities of that the world encourages us to engage in, and has increasingly said, hey, these are acceptable. And many followers of Jesus, many who claim the name Christian, are more and more frequently not only viewing as acceptable, but is even encouraged to celebrate values like abrasiveness, right? In the name of, well, I'm speaking the truth, right? But we forgot about love, right? Qualities of self-promotion, that we're just encouraged to promote ourselves and to look out for me and look out for my group and to just pay attention to that and not really care about others. The world around us increasingly is inviting us to celebrate and even engage with values like that. And the values that we're looking at in this series come from Galatians 5. This passage is known as the fruit of the Spirit. And it describes the kind of life that is brought forth, the kind of life that is born when we live a life that's empowered by and guided by God's Spirit, alive and at work within us. And what does it look like? What does a life like that look like? We read it looks like this: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. This is what a life empowered by God ought to look like and is supposed to look like. And yet far too often, those who, again, claim the name of Jesus, that's not what their lives look like. And so we're going to be focusing on what does goodness look like in our lives right now. We have Mary Kamau with us, one of the founders of Missions of Hope International, and she's going to be sharing a little bit of the work that they're doing and accomplishing, and you're going to be inspired about this quality of goodness when she shares. But the goal is not to do what Mary is doing in Nairobi, Kenya, and in many regions beyond Nairobi now. If you do, you'll probably just get tired real quick if you try and just emulate what Mary is doing specifically. But the goal is to look at your own life and say, what is the good that I can do, right? What can I do? Because, again, the quality of goodness can be lived out in just a simple word of encouragement spoken at just the right time. It can be a note that you write that is so meaningful. It can be actually being present face-to-face with somebody, like eyeball to eyeball. Not like the whole time, like don't be like too creepy, just like staring directly for the whole time, right? But like having just a real life connection and presence and just setting the phone to the side, or at least putting it face down and being truly present. Or it could just even be bringing beauty forth in the world, right? Like even just like bringing beauty forth in your garden, or even working on a trail day to prevent like trail erosion so that other people can be out in nature and see the beauty and the wonder of creation. There's so many ways to bring forth goodness in our world. And so the question that really what we need to know, or the thing that we need to know about goodness, is that we need to do all the good that we can do. We need to do all the good that we can do. Now, for some of you who are achiever types, your brain just went in one of two directions. You just got excited about all the amazing things that you're going to accomplish by the end of the day. And then there's others of you achiever types who are like, now you're depressed because it's swirling because you're like, I can't do any of the things that I want to do, right? And so hold on, we're going to explain this a little bit. But here's the problem with this quality of goodness. We always think that goodness lives in some other season of our life. If you're a teenager or a young adult with us, right, we often think of goodness as something that you're going to get to later on. You're going to graduate high school. You're going to graduate college. You're going to get that first job. You're going to get through boot camp. You're going to, get your skills training, and then you're going to do the good things that you want to do or you feel like God has for you. Maybe we're at the other end of the spectrum and we're retirement age, and we can think of goodness as something that has passed. That's something that we used to do. But the opportunities to do good, that we just don't have those anymore. And there can be kind of like two feelings around this. One, we just maybe don't have a strong sense of purpose in our later years. Or we can be racked with a sense of guilt that man, there were these opportunities to do good that we missed. And so a lack of purpose or a sense of guilt can hold us back from seeking to do the good that God invites us to. And then if we're in those middle years, right, we're just trying to survive. Like, do my kids have clothes on? Did they eat lunch today? Like, how am I going to get them to college, right? We're just trying to survive. How am I going to get through this project at work? And it's a nightmare. My coworkers are just a train wreck, right? And so in those middle years, we're just more in survival mode. But wherever we're at, how do we step into this quality of goodness? And it begins by really asking the question of, what is the good that I can do? What is the good that I can do? Because this is a theme over and over again in the pages of the Bible. We are invited as people to step into doing good. And so I just want to give you a few verses that speak to this. As I mentioned, we kind of looked at that fruit of the Spirit that comes from Galatians 5 and the quality of life that should come from that. But the next chapter in Galatians 6, we read this about doing good. We read, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, Let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. We recently just finished up a teaching series on the book of Titus, and we looked at really asking the question, how do I know I'm living a life that is truly good? And so just one kind of set of verses from Titus 3 I want to just call back to. Titus 3, 1 and 2, and then verse 8. Remind the people to be subject to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready to do whatever is good, to slander no one. So what does that look like to do good? To slander no one, to be peaceable and considerate, and always to be gentle towards everyone. Again, you can see the way of Jesus is so countercultural to the world around us. He goes on to say, and I want you to stress these things so that those who trusted in God may be careful to devote themselves to doing what is good. These things are excellent and profitable for everyone. And then lastly, Jesus' command to do good for us it's captured in the Sermon on the Mount, his most complete teaching that we read of in Matthew 5. Jesus says this, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And this is just one small sampling of again and again and again God's call for us to bless others, God's call for us to do good in the world around us. And following in the way of Jesus should always lead us to do good. But it's not about the size of the footprint of good that we do. It's about being faithful to be obedient to the good that God calls us to, even if it seems in small, often unnoticed ways. Right? How are we pursuing goodness in being parents or being a stay-at-home parent? How are we pursuing goodness in being a good coworker? What does it look like to be a blessing to the neighbors around us? Or what does it look like to speak words of life rather than tear down and add to division? And so it's my hope that as we invite Mary up after we have a brief video kind of just explaining what Mohi Missions of Hope International really does and a little bit of their backstory. It's my hope that you will be inspired by Mary's just faithfulness to pursue goodness, and that we can all be inspired to, again, take that next step of goodness in our lives wherever we are at. And so after the video, I would like you to warmly welcome what I believe her title should be, the Reverend Dr. Queen Mary Kamau. So let's watch this video.
Despite the complex and often overwhelming magnitude of spiritual and physical poverties, we know there is a solution. The answer is Jesus, and that is why there is hope. In the early 1990s, Mary Kamau, a recent college graduate active in her faith, visited Mathare Valley, one of the oldest slums in Nairobi, Kenya. What she saw transformed her life forever. Mary had never seen such extreme poverty. She couldn't understand how people could live in such unhealthy and dangerous conditions. But what shocked her even more was that it appeared that no one was stepping in to help. In that moment, the Holy Spirit began his work, lighting a fire in Mary's heart and calling her to God's will. Mary, along with her husband Wallace, quickly realized that while the people of Mathare Valley were hungry for the word of Christ, they also needed a way to meet their most basic needs. The two were joined by a board of directors and the local community to begin building what would later be known as Missions of Hope International, opening their first Christian school for 50 kindergarten students in the year 2000. Over the years, God has blessed the ministry with rapid growth. Through partnerships with churches and supporters worldwide, Missions of Hope International, or MOHI, has grown from an individual calling to a global ministry, serving over 20,000 children and their families in over 25 communities, changing the landscape of opportunity in poverty-stricken areas and transforming lives through the hope of Christ. Today, as a leader in holistic ministry, MOHI provides a wide variety of integrated programs that seek to educate, empower, restore, and redeem whole communities for Christ, creating hope not only for today, but for eternity.
Good morning. Wow, what a blessing to be here today to fellowship with all of you. We have had a partnership with your church since 2008, and we are very grateful to all of you for your generosity, for your love for our people in Kenya. Of course, through the partnership, we have seen many lives being transformed in the slums of Nairobi, specifically Mathare Valley. A lot of churches have been planted, and so many lives and families are being transformed. And obviously, as we were doing this ministry in the slums of Nairobi, some years ago, about 2013, we started going outside the city, and we went to northwestern Kenya in a place called Turkana. This is Turkana County. We have the Turkana people living there, and these are a pastoralist community. And most of the times, this community and others are so marginalized, and they live in a lot of poverty. Most of the times, there is a lot of drought, and the place is dry, it's like in deserts. And so when God spoke to us to go to this area, we went out there by faith, and we started a school. And this school, over the years, now has grown to more than 1,400 students. And so in 2019, because what happens in this community among the Turkana, just to give you a little bit of background, is that it is a pastoralist community. They value animals more than anything else, you know, goats and camels. And so their culture emphasizes a lot on how many animals, how many goats, how many camels can somebody get. And so you find that children, and especially girls, even for when they are as young as 9 years, 10 years, 11, 12, they're given out for early marriages. And then the boys are recruited to go and raid for animals, you know, in their neighboring communities. And so being able to start this school for this community was a big thing. It was like a big challenge, but a very good thing, because it meant that then the boys and girls in this community can be given an opportunity to be children and not be involved in all those kinds of things. And so in 2019, we organized a girls' conference for the girls in our school. And so we were able to get this building in the neighborhood, and we set up, you know, round tables, just like the way girls, you know, or women conferences happen. And we had these round tables. And then as we were in there going on ministering to these girls, one day I looked out of the window and I saw this girl looking inside. And in her eyes was so much sadness. It's like she was looking at the girls that were inside enjoying the conference and enjoying the crafts, enjoying the lemonade and the snacks that we had given them. And she had this sadness. And when I saw her and our eyes met, it's like my heart just felt so broken. And it's like I saw in her eyes that look like, can you rescue me? You know, it's like that is the message I got from her eyes. And so I called her in and I invited her to sit next to me, and I tried to talk to her, but she did not understand English, of course. She did not understand Kiswahili. The only language she knew was Turkana. And so I had to call someone to help translate for me, and I asked her, you know, what she was doing and why she wasn't in school. And she pointed outside and pointed at this old man that was sitting somewhere with his friend, and she said that was her husband. That broke me. And I told the translator, Rhonda, our social worker, that can you please ask her whether she would want to come to school and be part of these girls that are seated here. And the girl nodded her head. Her name is Joyce. Very beautiful. And when she nodded her head, she had this smile that just captured my heart. And so I invited her and told her to join one of the tables. Meanwhile, me and Rhoda walked out and went and started talking to this old man. And I told him that I wanted him to release this girl that he was calling his wife to come to our school. And he was like, how would that happen? I gave dowry to her family. I paid 5 camels and 30 goats for her. And I still need to get more animals to her family. And God gave me some wisdom and some courage, which is rare, in that kind of a community. And I negotiated with him and told him that I would give him a job to be a watchman, like a guard on one of our properties, and he needed to release Joyce to come to our school. Of course, Joyce wasn't his first wife. I think she was like the 3rd wife. And so, after my negotiating with him, he agreed, and I jumped at that opportunity and got Joyce to our school. Meanwhile, he called Joyce's father, and Joyce's father, came and listened to the story, and he was like, well, it's okay if the husband has agreed to release her. However, because I already received the dowry, as a matter of fact, some of the goats even died already, so I can't pay back, and that wouldn't be right in our culture. So, are you willing? So Joyce's dad was asking me, are you willing to take Joyce to be like your own daughter? Because during school breaks, yes, she can be in the boarding school, but during school breaks, she needs a place to stay. Can you take her to your home? And I, of course, you can be sure I said yes. Then, of course, I later remembered I need to call my husband and let him know what's going on here. And my husband, knowing, who I am and the calling God has put on our lives, he agreed. And that's how Joyce joined our school. Today, Joyce is in 7th grade. I'm talking of, she had never been in school until June 28th, 2019. And within that short time, in the midst of COVID and everything, she is in 7th grade. Very sharp, and she's on top of her class. It would have been such a waste. However, the good story about Joyce and that connection is that we later went and visited her home because we wanted to know where she came from, the village she came from, and it is this remote village. In that village, people have to walk miles and miles to get water for cooking and for drinking. And most of the time they dig holes along the waterbeds to get even just a little bit of water. No school for those children. They have to walk like for 15 kilometers if they needed to go to school. And so the only thing these people knew was raise kids, raise girls, raise boys a little bit, then send them out to raid or give them out for early marriages. But when we went to this village with Joyce, the people saw what had happened in the life of Joyce. And a number of women came and talked to me and requested whether their daughters could come to our school. Before we left the village that day, I had a list of 12 girls whose mothers wanted to send them to our school. And of course it was during school break, and so I talked to our social worker and our driver, and I told them to go back to the village when the school was going to be reopening and pick the 12 girls. When they went, they found it wasn't 12 girls waiting for them, but it was 25 girls. So they called me and they were like, oh, we came to pick the 12 girls, but they're not 25. They're not 12, they're 25. And I told them, just make 2 trips. And so we ended up having an additional 25 girls in our school. The beauty continues, the beauty of the story continues. Last year, in July. We went to visit this community, and I brought my friends who had come to visit from the US. And as we were there, of course, these people welcomed us with song and dance. But again, they just started talking, and they were like, can you start a school for our children right here in the community? I mean, this doesn't usually happen. And I was like, wow, they're the ones asking for a school. And then they were asking, can you start a church? Can you plant a church here for us? And I mean, how many places do you go and people are asking for a school and they are asking for a church? That doesn't happen all the time. And so I grabbed at that opportunity. I looked around and I saw some old buildings that people had gone and started to build and had left them unfinished. And I told these community members, in 2 weeks, we'll start a school here. And so we later were able to renovate the buildings, and the women got together and built huts for our staff members to be able to live in them while they teach their children, while they work as social workers. And a school was opened July of 2021. This community is called Locholademe. Don't worry about the name. I have a simpler way of identifying it. Just call it LD. LD. LD now has a school, a Missions of Hope school, and we have 262 children. 136 of them are girls. That means those girls cannot be given for early marriages. They have an opportunity to be children. But this would not happen without partners like you, without individuals who can take these children and sponsor them so that we can be able to get resources, to be able to educate them, to be able to provide Christian teachers to work with them, to provide social workers to work with them and their families, but also to provide 2 meals a day so that they're not staying hungry, but also to teach them the word of God and provide a uniform for them and to give them an opportunity to feel loved and to be hopeful and to have their future shaped, and also having them getting to know Jesus. This happens through child sponsorship. And so I'm inviting all of you to sponsor our children. Of course, some of them are in the slums of Nairobi, Mathare Valley, but others are in this LD community. And hopefully some of you someday can come and we can go to this community and they'll feel loved and they'll feel hopeful because God has answered their prayers. And so we are doing a great work there. Transformation is happening in this community. Now children are going to school. Everyone is excited about what God is doing. And this is not possible without your generosity and by you having an opportunity to show the love. And I'm inviting Rainier Christian Church to partner with us, sponsor the children, but also in the future help us to build conducive classrooms for these children so that they can have a good school, they can have a good kitchen to make their meals, and our staff can have better housing, and God will continue to be glorified in this community as transformation happens. So may God bless you so much, and we are honored that you are part of our ministry. God bless you. Thank you.
My name is Sistine. I'm 11 years old. I have lived in Mathare Valley my whole life. I was born to be a street girl. We all wish we could go to school, but many kids like me can't afford to go. They don't have much to do. They just stay home. Before I joined Missions of Hope, life was so hard. Sometimes we didn't have enough food to eat. My mom will go on the street to look for food. We could go without food even for a day. One day, my mother told me she found a school for me. I asked, which school? She said, Missions of Hope. Now that I'm at Missions of Hope, I'm in school. I'm learning so much. Math is my favorite subject. I'm eating 2 meals a day. They provide us health care and we can see the dentist. I gained confidence being in school. I even lead our school music team. I want to be a musician when I grow up. Missions of Hope is like a family to me. I feel that like I'm loved. I've seen how God is taking me far from the street up to now where I am. It's God. Without God, I won't be here. I'm thankful for Missions of Hope.
So there are a couple different ways to sponsor a child here today. You can definitely, the slide popping up here, you can text goodness to that number that's going to be there on the screen. Also, there's going to be a link that's going to be in the chat as well. You can click that, and there's going to be a series of just children that you can choose from. And Jeff mentioned this in our live services. Don't think about it. If this is something that's pressing on your heart, don't be looking for the right name, the anniversary date, whatever it might be. Just grab one of those kids. These are actual kids out there. These are children, like Mary talked about. These are, you know, people that are potentially, yeah, I have such a heart for this because I have a nearly 11-year-old daughter, and I cannot imagine what life would be like if I had to make the choice of marrying off my 11-year-old daughter as a child bride. But these girls, these boys, they're getting new hope and new opportunities because of what Missions of Hope International is doing out there. And what's so cool about Missions of Hope, or MOHI for short, is that there's so much more to this. Like, they've got their app that you can download. This is how we as a family, we have a small girl that we sponsor. This is how we stay in touch. We're able to talk with her, send her messages, photos of ourselves. This isn't just throwing $40 to the wind. We're able to send her gifts that they have available on the website and just be a part of her life as well and make a true difference outside of just the giving part, which is so incredible and cool to do. So again, if this is something that has maybe moved you, if you feel even just a little bit of a stirring, please just take a look at that link. Just text that number and see what happens. Yeah, and I know we've already had some incredible sponsorships in some of our live services, and my prayer is that that doesn't change just here online, that you take a moment to think on that, because this is a part of the Great Commission. It's not outside of just our four walls here at the church, or even within the four walls of our computer screen here. This is more. This is reaching out beyond borders and being a part of something big. So if you're interested again in sponsoring a child for Missions of Hope International, click that link, text that number, and thank you so much for that heart you might have. And even if you're not quite ready for that, listen to the podcast, listen again back to this message, think on it, pray on it, and maybe this is something that might be something fun for you and your family to do. Who knows? Thanks again for being here at Rainier View and RVCC Online here, and I hope that you have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week.
Your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. So all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.